Now preparing for the World Cup continues, and it's all happening under the lights inside BC Place. Let's welcome you inside our OneSoccer studio. Hello, everyone. Andy Petrillo alongside Christian Jack and former national team goalkeeper and Gold Cup winner, Mr. Craig Forrest, joining us here in studio. Yes, looking forward to your insights on tonight's show. We also have Amy Walsh will be stopping by, Josh Cloke of The Athletic. Oliver Platt is in BC. We'll be checking in with him too, because this is exciting. It's the second year of Concacaf Nations League. As mentioned, it acts as a qualifier for next year's Gold Cup. And while this is a tournament that matters, while this is a game that has meaning, we know the bigger story, of course, is the boycotting of Sunday's friendly against Panama by the Canadian men. They're questioning the allocation of World Cup prize money, and they want more transparency from Canada Soccer. This was all issued in a press release, and yesterday, for the first time, we heard from head coach John Herdman and captain Atiba Hutchinson as they both addressed the media.
As a team, we're just looking for, transparency. We've been working on getting legal representation. We got on the table, we spoke again, but now it's in the hands of the legal representatives, and hopefully things can get taken care of. But as I said, we're in a position where we're just looking for transparency.
These guys are fighting for something bigger, and it was a tough moment. No one wanted that to happen. The players didn't. And I think you've got to understand when they make decisions like that, that was a heavy decision that weighed on them, very heavy. But it let you know that, in their minds, there was a reason for that. And I have to respect that as a coach.
We want to be on the pitch, of course. We're playing for our country. We've got a lot of fans that are finally behind us. Although we know things are not done, things are not settled, we just thought of the bigger picture, and we feel like things will get taken care of and we'll get back on the pitch and do what we have to do.
This country wasn't ready for what just happened. It's 36 years since we've been to a World Cup. No one knew what was coming. No one was ready for this type of negotiation. We made mistakes on both sides, and we can't make them again. The next generation of leaders and players, they're not going to make them mistakes again.
What do you think John Herdman meant by that, KG? There was a lot that he said. That one in particular stood out. The country wasn't ready. What do you think he was getting at?
Well, I think it's probably abundantly clear what he means by it is that if they'd qualified for the World Cup 4 years prior, that they'd have been ready for a moment like this, right? Where suddenly they've handed a lot more money, call it prize money, allocation money, whatever you want to call it. By FIFA's, terminology, it is prize money. I do think that may be another topic, but probably will end up changing going forward. But no, I think that's what he means ultimately, is that the federation, the players, everybody that needed to come together for this weren't quite ready for this. It's a little bit mystifying in a sense that other players have told me, and this man next to me can certainly speak a lot better than I have, that they have gone into past World Cup qualifying campaigns and said, if you go through one round, you get this next round, and it was all organised before the start. Now, we're in a pandemic. We were in a pandemic. Maybe that was certainly added to the difficulties there and the changing. But I think that's clearly what he was getting to, Craig.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, I remember having contracts with the Canadian Soccer Association for every round, basically, right through the World Cup. You knew what the percentages were. However, there's other things that come into factor, like equal pay is a big conversation, obviously. And the sooner the men decide that they're going to agree to that equal pay, that's the sooner that the two groups, the Canadian women and the men, can then become joined together and become a very powerful group together. But if they don't do that, and you have the women and the men now fighting over that equal pay situation, we're going to be in a really bad situation. It's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. And another mistake by this men's national team, and I mean a mistake, because I think they should have played that game the other night. Right. And I'm on the side of the men, but I think they should have played. It's going to get worse. They're going to take corners. People are going to split into each other's corners, and then there's going to be a battle going on, and it's a battle that I think the men are going to lose anyway.
And I think that's the big question is, first of all, we want to know, when is this deal going to get done? Earl Cochran was asked this yesterday, the interim deputy general secretary, and he said, well, he kind of chuckled when somebody said, is this going to get done before the World Cup in November? But here's the thing. If you want equal pay, then you can't do a men's deal without a women's deal and together. I mean, so when we say, when is this deal going to get done, the two sides need to talk.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, yeah, that's the difference in a very unique situation that they're in as opposed to like when we were in. That was not a conversation, unfortunately, but I'm glad it is now. But if that is a situation where the women are going to hold firm on that, that's a reason why the association might have delayed for as long as they did. And then you have the men not really giving an inch, really, you know, talking about percentages, but they're not talking about equal pay here. So they've got something they've got to deal with that's very unique as well. So you've got all these different things and factors and moving parts going on. It just was a perfect storm for a bad situation. And then a couple of players obviously stood up, and the rest of the group decided they were going to sit this Panama game out, which was unfortunate really for everybody, because I didn't think they put a lot of thought into, you know, the supporters themselves and all that goes into it. People came from all around the country to see them play, and it's unfortunate.
That was really difficult to see, people losing money out of that, no doubt. Combine and come together, right, the men and the women. I think they can learn a lot, this men's group, from the women's national team. The fact that their negotiations have been going on since January, by all accounts, they're going very smoothly. They already had legal representation, which the men didn't have until obviously what has passed, conspired over the last few weeks. Right. They are way smarter than us, Craig. You're right. They were ready to do that, right, and ultimately be ready for that. So I think that they need to come together and now decide what the next step is going forward, because, you know, what happened with the United States Soccer Federation is a seismic deal in all of sports around the world, right? We talk about in this sport the John Mark Bosman ruling, what happened in terms of free agency, what happened with them changed everything, and this could change everything as well.
Well, Craig, I appreciate you saying what you said. Thank you. Let's welcome to the show now Josh Cloke of The Athletic. And Josh, I know you've been following this story closely. Just recently wrote an article in The Athletic. You had a chance to speak to quite a few former players, and two things kept popping up. What were they?
Yeah, that's right, Andy. Two things that a number of former players that I spoke to identified as kind of blind spots in the organization that perhaps should be considered as A, too many people in unpaid positions within Canada Soccer, and B, not enough people with a lot of soccer experience in and around Canada Soccer. And I think when you compare what Canada Soccer has done to some of the top federations around the world, those are two things that I think former players who really have an in-depth understanding of what it's like to be a Canadian soccer player feel that right now Canada Soccer might lack.
There seems to be a lot of talk as well of wanting transparency, because the trust also seems to have faded. How do they get that back? What positions do you see being created to move forward to repair those relationships?
Well, I think one first step could be the creation of a player liaison, because I think if we've learned anything from the past 2 weeks, it's that the executive and the board at Canada Soccer and the players are a little bit separated here, right? And they sometimes feel like they're on their own islands. And I understand that, right? They have very different jobs. So perhaps a player liaison, someone with extensive experience playing for Canada, could begin in that kind of role and serve as a go-between to really improve the communication between the players so they can focus on the pitch, and the executives so they have an understanding of what the concerns of some of the players are.
There are a lot of players as well who have since retired, who have business cred. So there is a pool to choose from.
Yeah, there's a few names that stick out. One of them is John Catlett, who for a long time was Canada's most prolific scorer. He goes on to, after his playing career, to be a vice president at Helly Hansen. He's a name that a number of former players recommended as someone that could fit the role. What about Diane Matheson, right? Very reputable player for Canada Soccer, and also one with really impressive business credentials. So the point is that if that trust is built and if that communication is improved, I think there are people, former players, who would consider taking on this role. But now one of the next steps that Canada Soccer has to take is to find those people and get them on board.
And I think the players have voiced that. They have made it perfectly clear that's what they want to see moving forward. Josh, appreciate you taking the time. You're on the show.
Thank you.
And what do you know? We have a former player right here. I mean, how important is it to get more former players involved? Maybe an alumni association? I mean, how would that make you feel? How would that repair that relationship?
Well, I've actually pushed for some time, and had talks even with John Herdman about it, and a legacy piece that's missing somewhere, you know, between the generations is really quite odd. But it's and when you see some of the former players and how when this situation and issues arose with the CSA, they jumped on them. they jumped on the CSA quickly because of their history and just, you know, it's one thing after another, but after even some of them sort of looked at the whole picture, you kind of calm down a little bit. But that's the knee-jerk reaction of ex-players. They feel a little bit left out. And I'll go back to even Jamaica game when they qualified. There was a ring of ball or whatever they call it, right? So I was invited to go down. Brilliant, like brilliant. But there was a bunch of players in that stadium and people, not just any players, but like likes of Alex McKechnie at the Raptors, loved being part of the Canadian Soccer Association, loved being part of the team, and why aren't they down there? And I brought that up, and so even when they try to do something good, they kind of messed it up in a way where they disappointed people, and that was really unfortunate. I didn't really want to see that, but in the end, it did happen. So, you know, things like that, little tiny things that need to be much better. And from the media standpoint, communications, they have to go a lot bigger. But they're going to the biggest show on earth here, guys. Like, they better be prepared for an absolute tsunami of press.
Yeah, I think there's a level of professionalism, right, that the players have really led. You know, a lot of players will say when they played for Canada in the past, Milan Bojan's been the one to say that John Herdman was the one that transformed that, right, that the level of professionalism for Canada soccer wasn't. These players are coming from, you know, unbelievable professional environments in the club game. The club game has gone like that, while the international game has gone like that in terms of quality and talent around the world. Now, the international teams that are catching up are raising their game to get to that. Training facilities, taking care of everything they can, mentally, physically, taking care of everything. And that comes with that level of professionalism that Canada Soccer know they've got to go to that next level. You know, the ideas that Craig speaks about is everything as well. But there's certain things that cost money, but there's certain things that don't cost anything. And this is a lifestyle decision as well. This is not just in Canada Soccer. You know, you replace ego and pride sometimes, and you put compassion and kindness, you can get a lot further. And I really, really want to stress that with what's going on in this whole thing as well. That, you know, there's good people on both sides of this, but we need to see more of that going on. At the end of the day, you know, we've just come out of a pandemic. We're not saving lives, and people take themselves just a little bit too seriously sometimes. Yeah. You know, we've been sat on this couch, Andy. We were doing games not that long ago with this team playing in empty stadiums in the United States because they couldn't play games here. And now, less than a year later, we're talking about you were able to play games here in front of fans and you didn't play the game. So something is broken, and that's not right either. I'm not blaming anybody in particular on that, but it isn't right. And as John Herdman said, both sides are to blame for that. We've got to fix it. And compassion and kindness goes a long way, and taking care of each other. And again, alumni, current players, level of professionalism, it's all got to be better.
You make a very good point about that and the international and club differences too. And I was very similar coming from that environment. Right. Like you say, some of these guys are playing for the biggest clubs and playing in the most professional environments. And they come back to international football, 2002, just to rings a bell with Roy Keane in Ireland. Right? Yeah. Manchester United, you just couldn't believe the professionalism. So it does happen, and that's something that is much different. And the money is obviously a big factor.
I think what's disheartening is you just don't want to see the us versus them mentality. You really want to see the two sides realize that they are the ultimate team together and working together and moving forward. And it seems, if you were listening to the presser from the interim Deputy General Manager or Deputy General Secretary, that's Earl Cochrane, yesterday, he was very positive, saying that the conversations have moved forward since the Sunday game, said that it was half negotiation and it was half education. So very positive with where things were going, and he seemed to have carried that through today. Earlier had a chance to catch up with our Oliver Platt.
I know it's not been long since you last spoke to the media, so obviously short periods of time, but can you just give us any update about where things stand as we head into tonight's match?
Yeah, as I said yesterday, there's not a lot to update. I think the players had indicated that they're looking to engage council. That's the next step. Right, our council engaging theirs, having some discussions. The players head down to Honduras, and you know, as they're away from and focusing on football, you know, it's our opportunity to kind of engage with whoever they have and start that process.
As you mentioned, the team now goes away from home and then obviously goes on vacation before returning to their clubs. How do you move forwards now that the obviously physical distances will be much greater?
Well, I mean, it's an ideal situation when they are away, right? We don't have to kind of pull them all together and find different opportunities virtually to kind of get them on the same call or in the same space. Now we have the opportunity to engage their council, our council with theirs, you know, and then whatever comes out of those discussions gets pushed back to them. Feedback. We have an opportunity to kind of move this forward probably quicker than we could if we were trying to engage all the players.
John Herdman talked yesterday about, this is the first World Cup for Canada's men in a long time. Some of the things and some of the difficulties that obviously come as a result of that. What's the Federation kind of taking away from this window as a whole, and the lessons you have moving forward for how this country needs to build now?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I thought John answered it really, really well. I think, as I said yesterday, June was always going to be a tricky window for us, but notwithstanding that, there are lots of lessons to be learned. I've got my own kind of thinking, I think it would be inappropriate, I think, for me to make my comments about what I think. I think what we need to do is get together as a group, debrief a little bit, find out whether some of the challenges we had were procedural, whether there were communication challenges, a whole slew of things. I think we've got to evaluate the things that went wrong, and quite frankly, some of the things that even went right, and build off of those. So there's a lot to learn. John said it really, really well yesterday.
Oh, thanks for the time.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Look at the Canadian players taking to the pitch for warm-up inside BC Place, taking on Curacao here in Concacaf Nations League action. And now with the Panama game gone, John Herdman has been very vocal in saying he really wanted to use that to experiment. But now you're in a tournament that matters. I mean, this is something they would like to go on and win. So when you take a look at this starting 11, it's very strong. Herdman really wants to start putting together that core for the World Cup. But we know that there are some players who can still play their way onto this squad. So when you start to take a look at this starting 11, when you know the players that are in camp, KJ, who do you think has a chance to do just that?
Well, I mean, the starting 11 doesn't surprise anybody, first of all. It's probably the strongest one you could say. It looks like a back four. Johnston may play in a back three. You can put Buchanan as a wing back and defensively and play as a back three at certain parts of that as well, particularly as an attacking team. But your question's a really good one, and it's going to be one that dominates the Canadian soccer media, hopefully, for a long time. Let's talk about on-the-pitch stuff for a while, like who gets on that plane, right? It's exciting. First of all, we think it's going to be 26 players. FIFA's not clarified that. It usually is 23 players, but we think it's going to be 26. I think that's important, Craig, because there's a bulk of players here. You could almost write 20 players' name down now and you go, they're all going. Do you know what I mean? I think we know there's a lot of there's not exactly a ton of players on the fringe and they're fighting for their chance. We have to remember that, they're going to play two big teams to start with, and I think you could almost make the case that they're probably going to play the starting 11 in both exactly the same. So I think the question should be who can play in the World Cup, not who can get on the 26. You look at players like Piet, for example, Daniil Henry, only played one game so far, started one game in MLS, both of them the same. And Raheem Edwards, who's in the squad now, who's playing a lot of minutes. I think those are the peripheral players. I don't doubt that people like Piet and Henry are going to go, but are they going to get to a level playing a lot of minutes where they're going to be relied upon to play that?
Exactly. And then you look at Victoria, I mean, he's not the youngest man in the world, right? So you'll be looking at, if you're sitting around the fringes, you might be looking at him going, I might be able to get in there, right, if I keep my chances and my opportunities and take them. Some of the guys, when we talk about what's happened recently, have maybe missed that opportunity against Panama to play when John could have actually tried some different things. But he's under so much pressure to get the result in this match because it actually means something. That's why we're seeing a strong lineup. So, he's going to benefit from that. But some of the young players and some of the fringe players will probably miss out on a chance to get some eyeballs from the coach.
Yeah, and we know John Herdman's very big on players getting playing time with their club teams. As we know, a big talking point has been Richie Larea not really getting that playing time with Nottingham, not seeing him in this starting 11. Jonathan Osorio is injured. He has been for quite some time now with Toronto FC. So let's take a look now at Curacao starting 11. What can we expect from this team, KJ?
Well, it's a good team. It's a team that's played Honduras twice already, while Canada's not been playing games. They've played 2 games already, so they're already in a rhythm and match fit. Some familiar names for people who certainly followed the English game. Vernon Anita played at Newcastle. Leandro Bacuna plays obviously at Cardiff, played at Aston Villa as well in Reading. His brother Juninho Bacuna played at Birmingham. Cuco Martina can play right back or centre back, played at Southampton and Everton. And of course, Elo Rome, the goalkeeper, who played at Columbus. So people know him pretty well as well. So some familiar names and a very fit and ready team to go at this team. Yeah,
this is one of those situations in a country that, a lot of people are going to think, this is, who are they?
Yeah.
They probably can't even pick them out on a map, right, let alone, whether or not they're strong or not. But they are a very, very solid side. They're very well coached and have turned some heads. So John Herdman and this team need to be on their game.
That's what we're working our way towards. But when we return, Hall of Famer Amy Walsh shares her thoughts on the women's response to the men's release when it comes to equal pay. And she also talks about the changes she would like to see within Canada Soccer. That's coming up next year on OneSoccer.
Sports can bring us together or tear us apart. But you know what never disappoints?
Shawarma?
We're making what you're craving, Osmos. All come together.
We call it the beautiful game, where artistry leaves you in awe, mixed with emotion that grips the soul. We are witness to beautiful goals, where unbelievable cannot begin to describe what we just saw. It is where pride comes to life on the pitch. Respect has been earned. This is where one game is found on OneSoccer.
For life's transitions, working from home, and even small businesses, life gets better when you have space. With no long-term contracts or leases, get the size you need. First 4 weeks free. Access Storage. Proud partner of Canada Soccer's men's national team.
That voice in our heads that urges you forward.
Bueno, dale, vamos.
Fuel it.
A lot has changed since you got your last perfect vehicle. You met someone. You got a dog. Your best friend met someone too. You got new interests. A new hobby. You felt a little more adventurous. You found a bigger hobby. You explored a little more. You needed a vehicle that reflected the new you. You found it. The all-new Toyota Corolla Cross. Your new perfect.
Canada's women's national team returns to OneSoccer later this month for a World Cup qualifying tune-up against South Korea as Canada's Golden Girls look ahead to the pivotal Concacaf W Championship this July. Can Canada's women repeat their feat from the Tokyo Games and take down the Americans again? With World Cup qualification in sight, Canada also announced this week a pair of September friendlies to be played down under against a strong Australian side ready to host the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup. As we welcome you back into our OneSoccer studio, it's Match Day Live. The Canadian men are taking to the pitch against Curacao in Concacaf Nations League action. And after canceling their friendly against Panama on Sunday, issuing their press release, part of that was mentioning the women, wanting to see a domestic league for the women and also talking about equal percentages. Now, the women, of course, issued their own press release. They responded by saying while they support the men, they wanted to make clear that equal percentage and equal pay are two different things. So this is once again now in the forefront of the conversation. And I had a chance earlier to catch up with former Canadian player, Hall of Famer, Amy Walsh, who said that she would like a little bit more clarity when it comes to equal pay from the men's side.
I was heartened by the fact that I saw, you know, the men mentioned equitable structure, and they also mentioned the need for a domestic pro league. So that's fabulous. But there was no discourse with the women's team. So that's needed. They said it wasn't taken as an affront, and then they will sort of move forward, hopefully in lockstep. So I would like more clarity to your question, Andy, from the players themselves, because I think it's important if they're going to include it, that they're doing it in the right way, and they're doing it with not only approval from the women, but they're sort of both speaking the same message, so that moving forward, the fans know what's expected, the federation knows what's expected. When I was back with the national team, I played for about a decade, and women who came before me, like the Jerry Donnellys and the Andrea Neils and the Charmaine Hoopers, it was a really draining fight. And when I saw Nick Bontis the other day in that press conference, the energy, the combativeness, the kind of defensive energy that he had, it really took me right back. It sort of ripped the scab off the wound. And while I never negotiated with him, I negotiated with many a CSA representative that had that same energy. So I think, and we were just looking for simple compensation. It was back in the day where we were working another job and we were just looking to be compensated for, say, 2 months of camps during the summers, which is all our program really had to meet in order to prepare for major competitions like a Concacaf qualifications or a World Cup. So it's changed, and it's changed for the better. But you know, in 2008, I was on the phone with the former general secretary about appearance fees and performance bonuses going into the Beijing Olympics, and we were flat out refused. We were on salary at the time and living in Vancouver, kind of a residency program. And then it was after that we got legal representation. I was listening to John Herdman yesterday, and he was saying that hopefully, you know, that this is done. The players didn't want to scrap that game on Sunday, and it won't ever happen again. But as a player who's lived it, and you know, that's end of the 1990s when I started my career, and I ended in 2009. We're still talking about the same issues and the same battles with the federation. So something has to shift there, and the players' demand of having more players, more former pros from members of the national team, the men's side, the women's side, the para team, involved in the board, involved in administration. I think that is key in moving forward here. So countries like Norway and Australia, I think the Netherlands as well, they have long since established sort of equal pay in their federations. But when you start to address it where you can control it in your own backyard, then you begin to affect change. Then you begin to make noise. So you were talking about it before with Billie Jean King and with Serena Williams, and how if you look at the US Open, there's been equal pay on both sides for a number of years now. There, you know, the US women are the first to kind of do it in soccer, but it's happening slowly. So I hope that sort of the trickle down effect from such a landmark decision will not only affect things here in Canada, but will start to sort of chip away again at that disparity that exists worldwide.
A lot of great stuff there by Amy Walsh. You can watch the entire interview on OneSoccer.ca. We'll see the Canadian women in action Sunday, June 26th, in a friendly against South Korea right here on OneSoccer. We'll get you ready 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That game being played at BMO Field in Toronto. Well, we are working our way towards kickoff between Canada and Curacao in Nations League action. We'll take you through the starting 11s as well when we head inside BC Place. We'll also check in with Oliver Platt as the fans are starting to pile in. It's Matchday Live on OneSoccer.
A lot has changed since you got your last perfect vehicle. You met someone. You got a dog. Your best friend met someone too. You got new interests. A new hobby. You felt a little more adventurous. You found a bigger hobby. You explored a little more. You needed a vehicle that reflected the new you. You found it. The all-new Toyota Corolla Cross. Your new perfect.
For life's transitions, working from home, and even small businesses, life gets better when you have space. With no long-term contracts or leases, get the size you need. First 4 weeks free. Access Storage. Proud partner of Canada Soccer's men's national team.
Joe Mason with a chance, and there it is for Joe Mason. Garcia the run-up, and the goal from Akeem Garcia. A new era for Canadian soccer begins today. Experience the emotion of every match. Watch all the highlights, the breaking news, the best debates and analysis, and all the information about the Canadian stars playing abroad. Get access to the best of Canadian soccer from any device. Join the new dawn of an unstoppable game. See the rise on OneSoccer.ca.
It's Matchday Live here on OneSoccer. The fans are making their way inside BC Place in Vancouver, getting set for the Canadian men to take on Curacao. Concacaf Nations League has begun this week. It's in its second year. The inaugural season was 2019-2020. It too was disrupted by the pandemic, but the Americans are the reigning champions of this. You know, this would be another feather in the cap for the Canadians if they could go all the way in this tournament. As we take a look at the starting 11, a pretty hefty lineup here for John Herdman, but what's really exciting, KJ, is for the first time in 2022, drum roll please, we are going to see Alphonso Davies playing for the Canadian national team. We know he was dealing with the mild case of myocarditis, and this is really exciting, and he happens to be playing at home as well.
Yeah, back to BC Place for the first time, obviously, since he departed as a Vancouver Whitecap to go to Bayern Munich, so it's a special time for him. I know he's been itching to get out there and play. So, you know, it's been, you know, good to see him play. He was in Edmonton signing autographs at the FC Edmonton CPL game for a while, so he's been obviously getting his soccer fix since ending the season.
He was cheering on the Oilers. That didn't go over too well.
Yeah, that's true as well. Although he did okay with his bet against Sam Adekubi and against the Flames. So he's been getting his soccer and his sports fixing since obviously ending as another champion. But no, he obviously looks fit and ready to go. And, you know, I think he'd be excited. I think it's interesting to see the development of what Alphonso Davies is, right? Isn't that long ago we were talking about, is he going to be a left back? Is he going to be a wing back? And I think now is he going to be a left midfielder or a forward? Because it's like he has to be in that impactful player up front. But he's certainly developing a great relationship on that left-hand side with Adekubi.
Right, and Sam Adekubi has just been absolutely brilliant. And there's no worries in the left-back situation. We were always wondering because, you know, Alphonso can play all the way up that side. But, I mean, I think in the Canadian setup, I think with this international football, he is far forward as they can get him, the better. Yeah. And as long as they've got reliable defenders behind them. And I think defense was always a talking point going into the last group stage, and in the end, this group did an incredibly good job. They weren't soft at all. You know, Victoria, a little bit older, but really played it out of his skin. So everybody sort of played their part. But from attacking standpoint, KJ, I mean, it's really quite something to see those four up top there and how exciting. And we've never been in this world before. No, where we've got that kind of firepower.
No, it's fascinating because I keep thinking now about Belgium and Croatia. And you see that lineup today, and people think that's going to be the 11. I don't know. I don't know whether you play them four against Belgium and Croatia, but it doesn't matter which three out of the four you pick. And we think Davies and David and Buchanan probably for me, but you know they're going to bring pace. And that's always a counter on the counter-attack, which is what Canada did in transition counter-attack goals this year in the World Cup qualifiers. Their efficiency from 2-3 quick passes to scoring goals by far and away destroyed everybody else in CONCACAF, right? Yeah. That's what they will go to. No matter what they achieve now in this game and in the friendlies to come, they will go to the World Cup. And Roberto Martinez and Zlatko Dalic and all the other coaches will have on their scouting report counter-attacking team, pace up top, right? Yeah. They're all going to. That's the trademark of what Canada is now. I don't think we'll see that today. I think we're going to see a bit more possession base, which will be fun. But you're right. I mean, it's just the attacking talents. It's just off the charts.
And that danger of having that pace is just, it terrifies everybody. We go back to the World Cup qualifiers in Azteca. Mexico was sitting back. Yeah. That's been absolutely unheard of against the Canadian national team. But pace is something that kills, and teams are afraid of it.
I don't want you to bury any of your former teammates by any means, but if you had an Alphonso Davies on your team, just out of curiosity, how would that have felt as a goalkeeper? No, you have some guy up front who's just scoring goals.
Well, forget about Alphonso. Hey, we got to forget, he only played 7 of the 14 games.
This is true too, yeah.
How many times can any country with a superstar like Alphonso miss, half the qualifying and finish top of the table? Yeah. So it's a really impressive of what this group has done in a total. But obviously, Alphonso, you talk about tier 1 players, and he's that tier 1 plus, they come along very, very rarely, and he is an absolute joy to watch, and he's great for everything as far as promotion himself too, and everything that comes with him. He's an absolute dream for Canada.
Full package.
Yeah, it's exciting to see him. Herdman has always wanted him in front of goal, which is why the emergence of Sam Adekubi has also been so crucial for this team and the back line as Canada is getting set to take on Curacao here in CONCACAF Nations League action. And, we love our Canadian soccer history here, and Curacao is a special place because it was back in 2017 when then 16-year-old Alphonso Davies made his senior national team debut against the same Curacao team they're taking on tonight. So Davies, a second-half substitute, helped Canada storm back with a pair of second-half goals from Andrekar James and Anthony Jackson Hamel before a 2-1 final at Saputo Stadium. Look at the youngin there. CanadaSoccerStore.com is the new home for official Canada Soccer apparel and fanwear, including customized national team jerseys.
Sports can bring us together or tear us apart. But you know what never disappoints?
Shawarma? We're making what you're craving Osmos. All come together.
We call it the beautiful game, where artistry leaves you in awe, mixed with emotion that grips the soul. We are witness to beautiful goals, where unbelievable cannot begin to describe what we just saw. It is where pride comes to life on the pitch. Respect has been earned. This is where one game is found on OneSoccer.
For life's transitions, working from home, and even small businesses, life gets better when you have space. With no long-term contracts or leases, get the size you need. First 4 weeks free. Access Storage. Proud partner of Canada Soccer's men's national team.
That voice in our heads that urges you forward.
Bueno, dale, vamos.
Fuel it.
A lot has changed since you got your last perfect vehicle. You met someone. You got a dog. Your best friend met someone too. You got new interests. A new hobby. You felt a little more adventurous. You found a bigger hobby. You explored a little more. You needed a vehicle that reflected the new you. You found it. The all-new Toyota Corolla Cross. Your new perfect.
It's Match Day Live. Canadians wearing their gear, getting set to cheer on their team as they are taking on Curacao in Concacaf Nations League. For Concacaf, that tournament beginning this week. This is the first game for Canada. They will play Honduras on Monday. As we welcome you back to Match Day Live, Oliver Platt inside BC Place. And Ollie, we're less than 30 minutes away from kickoff, so a good indication of what this crowd is going to look like. Take us inside. What's the feeling there? What's the atmosphere?
Well, the fans inside the stadium, Andy, are obviously excited. Alphonso Davies' name was just announced to the biggest cheer so far by far. But you can't help but say, looking around this place, it's pretty sparsely populated right now, and that probably doesn't come as a surprise. You know, the Panama cancellation wasn't the first bit of trouble, obviously. We've had in Vancouver, obviously, with the Iran game before that, looking like it would be a sellout and then being cancelled as well. So, look, let's be honest here, it's not the impression that Canada Soccer wanted to leave in Vancouver, a city that will host games at the 2026 World Cup, and obviously didn't get to see this team in qualifying.
You've been pitch side before, Ollie, when the men have taken to the field getting ready for some big games. How would you compare perhaps just the energy, the mood around the team in those games compared to maybe what you're feeling and what you're seeing tonight?
Yeah, I think there's no question it's a bit more subdued than it normally is. I think particularly the players who have been involved in these negotiations, right, embedded in this for the last few days. Now they're getting legal representation, which I think will help massively. But some of these players have been very directly involved, and that's meant, you know, late nights spent negotiating, having these talks. It's meant hours on end being stuck in rooms, you know, outside of your normal routine in terms of nutrition, in terms of sleep, in terms of all of the different things that you know, John Herdman really plans out meticulously to keep his team on the right page mentally and physically. So that, I think, will have a toll tonight. I do think at the same time that just being out on the pitch will be liberating for these players, and, you know, allowing them to focus their attention back on what they love to do as opposed to what's been going on over the past week.
Yeah, stress really has a trickle-down effect, that's for sure. But bottom line, this is a game that has meaning here tonight. John Herdman going with a pretty strong lineup. What is it that you think he's trying to accomplish?
Well, I think it's a full-strength team, and I think that was what they looked at. The Panama game was the chance to maybe experiment a little bit. Now, there might be an element of that tonight against Curacao, but I think they've looked at this Curacao team, the way they played in beating Honduras away from home, and I think the feeling is they can't afford to take too many risks or experiment too much, or they might not get the result that they want here tonight. And let's be clear that they do want a result. They want to compete and win this Concacaf Nations League, and 3 points tonight is pretty much a prerequisite for doing that.
All right, as mentioned, less than 30 minutes away from kickoff. We'll be checking in with you throughout the night. Thank you so much, Ollie. That's Oliver Platt inside BC Place, working our way towards that game. But we have a ton of soccer on this channel as well when it comes to under 20. It's the Concacaf U20 Championship. The Canadians are in this one. Those are the dates beginning Saturday, June 18th, Monday, June 20th, and Wednesday, June 22nd. All of those available on the OneSoccer YouTube channel. Moments away from entering BC Place for this game between Canada and Curacao. A little refresher of the group that the Canadians are in Concacaf Nations League and what this means moving forward this tournament when it comes to qualification in Concacaf Gold Cup.
Welcome to Allstate. Or you save with Allstate. Click or call for a quote today.
To play. It's something that's in us from the very beginning, and something we take with us on every step of the journey. When we have no words, it gives us a way to speak. When we are still finding our way in the world, it gives us somewhere to belong. And no matter who we are or where we come from, it gives us the right to dream.
Christine Sinclair, as she scores at her 5th World Cup. Alfonso Davies!
It's time to celebrate the game we love. It's time to play.
We're used to labels. Apologetic. Sweet. Pushovers.
1, 2, 3, red!
But screw labels. No more being polite. No more sugarcoating. Because we're labelless and limitless. Oat Canada, the official plant protein partner of Canada Soccer.
Going to the World Cup for the first time since 1986, defeating Jamaica back in March, officially clinching. Who's in their group, do you say? Well, that would be Belgium, who placed third at the 2018 World Cup. Oh, Croatia, they were actually in that final, losing to France. You can never sleep on them. And how about Morocco? They're going to their second straight World Cup. They were eliminated in the group stage in Russia. Tonight's game, it's Canada taking on Curacao. So this is how CONCACAF Nations League works. They're in Group C, but there are 3 leagues, League A, B, and C. You can earn promotion. You can also be relegated. So obviously League A is where you want to be. That's where this group is. Curacao earned promotion, hence why they're in this group. KJ, they did lose a game, obviously, in preparation for World Cup against Panama. How important are these matches here in CONCACAF Nations League?
Well, they're really important for Canada. Obviously, in a World Cup year, they were bound to be a little bit pushed into the rearview mirror because they're not as priority right now what that is. But ultimately, post-World Cup, what have we got to look forward to? Well, a Gold Cup eventually. Post-World Cup, we got a Gold Cup to come. But, you know, the element of the ability to get to a Nations League semi-final tournament is important because then you're going to be there with the top 4 teams in the CONCACAF. And Canada win what they class as the CONCACAF Championship by winning the World Cup qualifying group. They believe they are the elite of CONCACAF. You can't be the elite of CONCACAF if you don't get to the CONCACAF Nations League semi-finals and then go and play a US or a Mexico in the semi-finals. Ultimately, they want to keep going that momentum, Craig. It's not just about one tournament. They want to build the way through. They win the Nations League. They want to win a Gold Cup. They want to continue that run.
They want to confuse football fans out there about what they're actually
Nations League is. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's so complicated.
Yeah,
so anybody out there that doesn't quite figure it out, It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay. But what we do know is that this is important. And it's also important for the development, I think, of Concacaf. And the expansion of the World Cup that we're going to see is also that, these countries are going to be able to now really, truly dream to make the World Cup, because there may be as many as 10 teams and playoff spots and all sorts of things. So I think it's wonderful for that. And I think, a lot of credit goes to Victor Montagliani as well for the Nations League. Yeah. And, dealing with every different culture you could possibly think of in 41 countries in CONCACAF, but the one truly thing that brings everybody together is football. And if you can give more of that, they're always going to look after you. So it was about football, giving them opportunities, giving them a guaranteed amount of games, and the development, I think, of the game in our region and around the world, I think, will benefit from it.
Second year that this is happening, as I had mentioned earlier, the inaugural year was 2019-2020, and you had mentioned it was because they wanted to create more games for them that had meaning, as opposed to friendlies. Let's play this. Let's give you something to play for. Oh, by the way, top two in your group qualify for Gold Cup. And there's a competitive factor as well here, KJ, right? As opposed to get a friendly under your belt. No, play for something.
Yeah, you've got to have games of meaning now in anything in sport. The friendly doesn't sell. Everybody's got things on the radar. Don't want to watch that game. It doesn't matter. And so, ultimately, at the end, we've got the first example of it, and you're right, Victor Montagliani's been a big proponent of this. These countries need games of meaning. They need things, they mean things to go to the Gold Cup, they can qualify. The United States played Mexico. It was a phenomenal game in the final in Denver. McKennie scored. It was a brilliant game. That's the kind of game Canada wants to be in. They want to be in a final against the US or Mexico. They want to be competing for trophies. It's not just about the World Cup qualifier. And you have to remember, after they played the World Cup, they've got 4 years of no World Cup qualifiers because they're hosting in 2026. So what does that mean? Less meaningful games. So meaningful games now, meaningful games in Nations League semifinals, Gold Cups, potential Copa America appearances are all really important, Craig.
Really important, because if you're doing in that 4-year span without anything, we saw what the Koreans did prior to 2002. They're basically a traveling roadshow. But I don't think we can do that. We don't have the benefit of most of the players playing domestically, where you can shut the league down and say, okay, we're going to go play in these different tournaments. That's not really what we can do. So we have to be sort of creative as well, and find ways to make the time for these guys and get some opportunities for games and make them meaningful, which is really, really special. And we're seeing that just in the lineup tonight. How meaningful it is by John Herman taking no chances whatsoever.
It's a strong 11, no doubt.
It is. Well, and going back to that, I mean, a lot of these players, which is fantastic to see Canadians doing great things overseas, but we also see sometimes the club teams, they get a little itchy, right? If you're playing a friendly or if there's a little bit of an injury. We saw that with Alphonso Davies and the communication that John Herdman had to have with Bayern Munich. And I mean, it was sad that Alphonso Davies wasn't even there at the Jamaica game when Canada officially clinched, but you could understand the concerns even from the pro level. Oh, the politics of everything. But you know what? We're going to be seeing a soccer game here tonight. It is a big one for Canada, taking on Curacao. The next voices you hear will be that of Gareth Wheeler, Jimmy Brennan. They're calling this one, and we'll see you at halftime. Canada men's national team on OneSoccer is brought to you by the Toyota Corolla family.
A lot has changed since you got your last perfect vehicle. You met someone. You got a dog. Your best friend met someone too. You got new interests. A new hobby. You felt a little more adventurous. You found a bigger hobby. You explored a little more. You needed a vehicle that reflected the new you. You found it. The all-new Toyota Corolla Cross. Your new perfect.
For life's transitions, working from home, and even small businesses, life gets better when you have space. With no long-term contracts or leases, get the size you need. First 4 weeks free. Access Storage. Proud partner of Canada Soccer's men's national team.
You save with Allstate. Click or call for a quote today.
This broadcast of Canada Soccer's national teams is presented by Allstate. You're in good hands.
Welcome to the Concacaf Nations League and welcome back, Canada. For the first time in Vancouver and BC Place since 2019, the Canadian men take center stage in what is their final home match ahead of their first World Cup in 36 years, as Canada face Curacao in the first of 4 in the group stage of the 2022-2023 Concacaf Nations League. A group of heroes take the field tonight for the first time on Canadian soil since March 27th, and a 4-0 win over Jamaica, which clinched Qatar for Canada Red, a frigid day with so many warm memories. Tonight, what was once thought to be a massive celebration is proving to be uneasy in the build-up towards kickoff after an emotional, tumultuous week. Tonight, the hope is for some sense of normalcy, or as much as can be expected. With the country once again with full hearts and open eyes, hoping they see the Canada that captured the attention and the adoration of the country through qualifying. These games matter for this competition, for preparation, for perception of what it means to be part of Canada Soccer. Canada in the mode of proving themselves all over again, building off of what was the top performance in all of CONCACAF through qualifying, picking up points in 12 of 14 games and capturing the imagination of the nation in the protests. We've waited an extra 5 days. What's an extra few moments as we're hoping to see Vancouver rise to the occasion tonight like they have so often under less than ideal circumstances. Joining me tonight on the match call, 44 Canada caps, 6 goals as well, and some pretty good ones. This former Canadian men's national team player, Jimmy Brennan. This is what we've waited for. This is what we want to see. Canada back on the field, in action, showing what this group is all about once again.
Of course, look, and the players, they'll be happy to be back on that pitch and doing what they're best at, and that's playing football. You're right, they've gone through a hard spell there over the last number of weeks, and I'm sure it's taken an emotional toll on all of them. But I'm just delighted that this game's underway, and we get to watch these players perform tonight at home in front of a great crowd. And the importance of this game, Gareth, is we definitely have to win this one. We've got to make sure, regardless whatever's happened off the pitch, has to stay off the pitch, and the players have got to be focused for 90+ minutes today.
The CONCACAF Nations League might be not something that fans across this country are familiar with. Just to bring you up to speed, this is the 2nd season of the CONCACAF Nations League, involving men's national teams of the 41 member associations of CONCACAF. This is the group phase of the tournament, and it started last week. The final tournament, which will then decide the champions, will be played in June of 2023. The Nations League also serves as a qualifier for the 2023 CONCACAF Gold Cup, where the United States are the defending champions. There are 12 teams in League A, that's where Canada finds themselves. In Group C, alongside Curacao and Honduras, each team has a win apiece. The 4 group winners from the League A will play off in a knockout format in June of 2023, and the bottom team in each group is relegated to League B. The aim of this competition is to provide more meaningful competitive fixtures when international friendlies would be usually played. And it also gives an opportunity for more competitive football. This is a proper step with big games rather than just coming out for friendlies. These are games that matter. There are stakes on the line here tonight, Jim.
Of course, and as a player, that's what you want to play. You want to play games that mean something. Friendlies are always difficult. Of course, look, the effort's always going to be there, but when there's something at stake, the game changes, the tempo changes, the mentality changes of the players. So definitely this is welcoming to the national team players, that's for sure.
Top two teams in each group as well receive automatic Gold Cup qualification, a tournament that you have fond memories playing as well. Concacaf dominance is the aim and direction for John Herman and this team as they take the field here at BC Place.
Et maintenant, accueillons les deux équipes qui s'amènent sur le terrain pour le match d'aujourd'hui.
Now, fans, please rise, remove your hats, and join us for the national anthem of Curacao.
Fans, veuillez maintenant vous lever pour la présentation de l'hymne national de Curaçao.
Now, fans, please remain standing. Raise your Canada colors and join us in singing "O Canada."
Fans, veuillez rester debout, élevez les couleurs canadiennes et joignez-vous à nous pour le Haut Canada.
The boys are back, the brothers are back, standing arm in arm together, moving forward to Qatar. Your match officials tonight, Nima Sagafi,
He's American. He's 32 years of age. He made his debut in Major League Soccer in 2016. He's presided over 8 MLS games this season, and including World Cup qualifying, Canada's 4-0 win over Suriname.